Okay, thank you very much for joining me this morning, everyone. We're going to take a look at lesson 1 and an orientation into the Canvas platform. So without further ado, let us share screen here and we will take a look at that. All right. Sorry about the delay there. Okay. Okay, we should be good to go. Can everybody see my screen that's being shared? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the feedback. Sorry about that. You have to give everything permission or okay. Wow. All right. Cool. Okay. So let us take a look at the Canvas platform. So when you sign in, you'll see a slightly different setup than what you're seeing here. But basically, if once you log on, you are going to see, you probably just see the one course available, and then you're going to see this kind of home page pop up. And again, it'll be a slightly different than what I'm seeing here. But one of the things that I would recommend everybody check out when they have a moment is this section here, modules. So if you click on that, you will see there's a bunch of instructions. Well, there's a bunch of helpful instructions here and resources. So if you go down the page, you're going to have a bunch of information on every lesson, which you might find helpful, but the resources here are really good. So there's a general help discussion board that all students can post to. I will show you that within our group here, we have our own help discussion board, and that's probably, where you'd want to post any questions you have. First, you've got the template file and some tutorials on the graphics and software. But one of the things, a couple of things that are very interesting here is the sample student reports. So there are 4 different samples, and these are really worth checking out. And I'm going to reference these on every Zoom Q&A as they are good examples of what people have put together and the value of using the template file here. If we go back, another really interesting thing for any students that are looking to sort of go into their own design business. If you go to this section here, client interface, these are fascinating short videos that Andrew, myself, and Kelda and Neil Bertrando have put together. And each one of us walks you through our design process. So from the initial meeting with the client right up till the end of the design. And it's fascinating to watch. I watched all of them just to see what different processes people use. So you might get a lot of really interesting information from those. But this is a great page to check out. And what we are going to do, we'll go to the discussion board. All right. So once you are within the Jamie's group discussion board, and you click on this button up here on discussions, you will see all of the different boards that we have set up. So this is our general help. So if you have any questions and you're just stuck and you can't figure it out, this is a great place to post it. So you just go there and you basically type where it says reply. It's a little bit misleading. Where it says reply, that is where you would post. You click on reply and then you can post your question and hit post reply. So that's a great resource. We go back to discussions here. We have an open thread. So if you want to interact, have a, post a question that's sort of non-course related, right? It's very open. You want to talk about whatever it is on your mind. You can post it here. And the other is our Q&A Zoom links. So this has a couple of things. This has a link to this Google document that I've set up. And ideally, what we want to do is if we click on that, you will see we have some space here that allows for you to type in any question you might have. So what I do ask people do, if you have a question going up to the Q&A meeting, this is a great place to post it prior to the meeting. These questions get priority in the call. And then once we have a little bit of time near the end of the meeting, we can take calls or questions from the floor. And you just put your name and your location and then basically what it is your question is. So that's pretty straightforward. And that can be, again, found within this Q&A Zoom meeting link board. And then we have our links for the meeting and some information here. And then we have all the dates listed below. So those are good to keep in mind. And just to give you a heads up, usually on the Thursday or Friday before a meeting, I'll send out a note to everybody with the Zoom link and just as a reminder. So you can expect to get that every couple of weeks. And just regarding the Q&A Zoom meetings, I think they're a really valuable addition to the course. The regular PDC program doesn't have this, and this really gives people an opportunity that not only get their questions answered, but if we do have a little bit of time at the end of the meeting, we can discuss other items that might be on your mind, any questions you have, whether they're related to the lesson or not. So these are quite valuable and I have a lot of fun doing them. So I'd encourage as many people as possible to attend those, or at least if you can't attend and you do have a question, just put it in the document there and we will definitely address that. Of course, we have our introduction board, and then we have the lesson 1 assignment board. And let's just take a quick peek at that. Each lesson or the way this is set up, as I'm sure you're seeing now, is each assignment gets posted into a separate board, okay? And there's a lot of advantages to this. When we're looking at lesson 1, we are listing a whole bunch of resources and information about the lesson right at the top here. And we also have a link to the PDC Pro report template. So that is something I would encourage everybody to utilize during the course for a number of reasons. I'm sure many of you have seen this already. Let me just zoom out a little bit here. But one thing that is really nice about this. Javin Bernakovich, who's one of our instructors, he put this together several courses back, and it's been refined each course a little bit. But the nice thing about this is you have all your tutorial videos and information relating to each slide or lesson built in within the template. So it really does help streamline the students' workflow as well. We've got some these are all set up for you, and you're basically just going to drop in your information. So the first lesson, we're looking at your personal survey and some information about your design site. And let me go back there. There we go. So these are pretty straightforward. And it's really interesting to read about everybody's plans with how they're going to integrate this into their life. For some people, it's, improving their own homestead. For others, they want to make a career change. And this course, I think is a really good starting point for that. So that is this sheet here. Then we go to your design site, and we have a little bit of info here that you want to fill in, and just some pictures. Really, we're going from the macro to micro. So we're looking at Google Earth images. And if we go to one of the examples, we can see that. So this is the personal survey of a past student talking about his goals. And you'll notice that the order of these may be a little different. So we go from a personal survey to climate survey, whereas the template file, the climate survey is number 3. So don't let that throw a curveball in there for you. If we jump to the design site, you can see just doing screenshots with Google Earth. Gives people a really good idea of exactly where your project site is as you zoom in on that. And then we just want, again, another screenshot of the project site. And in this case, this person put property boundary around it, just approximate. And then we look at some images that are on the ground and that are labeled. Okay, and the same here. And then at the end of this part of the assignment, we have a question or feedback column. So this is a great opportunity to pop in a question that you had come up with during this assignment or this part of the assignment. And typically what I will do, and not always for lesson number 1, but lesson 2 through 10, I will provide video feedback. So basically what I'll do is I'll open up your document and we'll go through it, and I'll make comments as we go. And that I have found has been really helpful for people. And it's also helpful for me in terms of getting my point across. And I can also, have a few tools at this end where I can augment any drawings or just show visually how you might want to either, tweak what you've done here or another way of doing it. So that's really helpful. Again, I don't usually do that for lesson 1 because it's, pretty straightforward, but from lesson 2 onward, I will be doing that. So when we get to lesson 2, we're looking at your base map. So that is, again, we don't want to look at that today, but if we go back to that template file, you can see how this is all set up to basically drag and drop images in here and show sort of the surrounding area and some overall images And then we have a really interesting section that I find is a great exercise in most of the assignments, and that's what we call a SWOT analysis. So we look at the strengths and the weaknesses and opportunities and threats that come up during this section's work. So if you're going through and you're describing your design site with images and the surrounding areas, there may be things that come up. You may think, wow, I'm in a really lush forested rural area, that sort of thing. You might, or it might be an incredibly good neighborhood in an urban area. The weaknesses may be, there could be all kinds of them, right? It could be, you might be in a fire interface zone. You may be in a flood zone. The same with opportunities. You may think, wow, I have this, I have, say you're on acreage and you have a couple acres of pasture that's not really been optimized. There's an opportunity for you, and the threats may be, it could be all sorts of things. It could be fire. It could be, pollution. Again, there's all manner of possibilities here. And then a conclusion. So just your reflections and some final summary on what you've done. And this is really helpful in that it gets you really thinking about some of these initial site analysis, because that's really what the first part of this template is all about. We're analyzing the site. We've got a general idea. We've selected the site. We're going to then look at the climate in a very general way. And when I say general, I mean just some basic information here with elevations, location, coordinates, and these are very easy to locate on Google Earth. So Google Earth will tell you the elevation, where you put your cursor on Google Earth. In fact, I'm going to start it up here and we'll take a look at that. As well as the coordinates and address. And the coordinates are really helpful for me in that when I'm reviewing your assignment and we're going through the video feedback, if there is any question or if I see a way of confirming anything using Google Earth, I can just copy and paste your coordinates and boom, we're on your site there. So I would encourage you to, and as you'll see with the rest of the template here, there's some information that we want to repeat regularly and in a title block. And that is one of them. So let me just, I am going to switch over here. And I've got Google Earth showing. So a couple of little tricks with that. This is just urban area, sort of close to where I'm located on Vancouver Island. So one thing to keep in mind with Google Earth Pro, if you're not really familiar with it, I mean, there's lots of tutorials on this software, but a couple of things that may really help out. If you are taking screenshots of Google Earth, and you can see that you can get yourself into a kind of a perspective view where you're looking at things on a side view. You don't want to be using that for any mapping, okay? So what you want when you're doing any mapping or utilizing this within maps is to be directly overhead. So let's say this was your project site and we're kind of zooming in, and you can see we're not directly overhead. All you have to do is hit the U key on your keyboard and you're going to go into that 2D overhead mode, and that is where you want to be to take your screenshot. And then the next thing you can do, and I'll just often, your image there will have moved around quite a bit. If you hit the N key, it will go north up. So that's one of the tricks that will help you out quite a bit. And I don't want to get too far ahead of things, but you'll notice that ideally we want to always have our maps north up, especially for overalls. Okay, and if you take a look at this image here and think, oh my gosh, it's north up, and the property lines are not going to be square to they're not going to be at 90-degree angles. Try to overcome that and not worry about it. But you will see as we go along in the course, having north up automatically gives you information. So we know where the southern orientation is without having to look at a north arrow. Often people will rotate it so it fits best on the page. And while I do understand that, I would encourage you to try and keep with that north up format. So that's a little bit about Google Earth here. We can go back to our template file. And if anybody has any questions as I'm going along, please don't hesitate to chime in. You can just unmute yourself and ask away. So yeah, Google Earth or Google Earth Pro, which is a free download, will help you. I did not show you one item here, sorry. We'll go back. So let's say again, this is our project site. If you place your cursor on the site, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner or at the bottom right portion of the screen, you have your coordinates and you also have your elevation. So in this case, I'm 58 meters in elevation and those are my coordinates. So if you can take that info and put it onto your climate page, that is certainly an easy way of doing it. All right, back to the template file. There we go. Then, of course, we want to look at climate itself. So some frost-free days, high temperatures, average summer high. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. You can find yourself a nice climate map and put that in here. And that's quite easy to do just by, well, let's just say you'd search climate data, let's say Nanaimo, which is fairly close to where I live in BC here. There's a number of choices. And you can go through this one here and you can get yourself a nice chart. This one here is showing your temperature and precipitation graph. So where I live, the precipitation is outside of the growing area, which is in this middle band. And that's how a lot of the Pacific Northwest is. So that, and so you can take a screenshot and just throw that in here. Annual average rainfall, very important to get. You're going to use that in many parts of the course, including lesson 5. And then the extreme daily rainfall. So do try as hard as you can to find that. And if you are in a small community and perhaps there's not much climate data, look for that data in an area as close to you as possible. So you may be in a small community outside a city, outside of a city limit, and that is, so check the data for that city. And again, we're going to use this in lesson 5. And just generally speaking, when you're designing a water system for a property, having that extreme daily rainfall number is pretty important in order to design a system so it will handle the volume of water based on that number here. Let me get my annotation tool. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's a biggie. Then we get into this graph, and this is super interesting. It's just, plotting across the year and some wind. That's also very interesting. Then we have a SWOT analysis. So when we look at climate, what are the strengths of our climate? What are the weaknesses of it? I know where I live, the weakness of our climate would be, most of our precipitation falls in the winter months when we're not really needing it. So where I live, rainwater harvesting is a low-hanging fruit that we'd certainly want to consider. And opportunities, that plays right into the rainwater harvesting comment. And then threats would be, where I live, would be extreme heat, like last year, which was pretty crazy with the heat dome that came through this area. So that is a little bit about the climate section, and then there's that Q&A feedback column. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a question. You may say, hey, I have feedback on these slides, or in fact, you may have a question. It may be you may be had some challenges finding your record extreme rainfall event. But usually you can, for most areas, you can get something that's pretty close. So I'd certainly encourage you to do that. And that is a little bit about the first assignment. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. That will lead to next lesson, where we're looking at the base map and we're going to look at a client interview. So that's very interesting. But again, one lesson is going to lead into the others. So what you're going to find with this course is you're going to start building a design layer by layer. So you're going to have your base plan in place. And if we look at that example, so we will skip ahead a bit here. So here is this fellow's base plan, which looks fairly ordinary, right? It's not colorized or anything very special. It doesn't have to be. And a legend here. And then there's a colorized version. They've put some utilities in and overlaid that with contours and an image. So don't worry about that right now, but you can see as we go through here, the design starts to get built upon. And the first part of the course, we're really looking at site analysis, and that's going to include our sector compass, our microclimates, and our current zones. And then in week 5, we get to water. And that's traditionally one of the hardest assignments, but we will be doing our best here to navigate up to that and make that as easy as possible for everybody. That assignment used to come in lesson 2, and it was pretty hard for most folks. So we've shifted it to 5. And it's a good thing because people do get a good lead up to that. They're in a groove by the time we get to a really tough assignment. So that is a little bit about that and what's to come. And of course, when you go to this template file, for those that are not familiar with Google Documents, you'll see that it says view only. So you can't do anything with this other than click and maybe highlight the odd box. So what you have to do is go under here and make a copy, and you're going to do the entire presentation, and it will stick itself on your Google Drive, right? So you just make a copy, and it takes a little bit of time. It shouldn't be too much of a wait. And then you'll notice up here, the title has changed, and you can actually just click up there and you could say, I'll put your name up there. And of course we can get rid of the very end. And done. And then you can start building on this. So that makes life easy. Now, why does this make life easy? Well, when we are sharing our work in the discussion boards, this is where it's quite brilliant. So all we have to do, let's say we went through and did assignment number 1 or lesson number 1, and we've done our personal survey and our design site and the climate, and we're ready to post it in our discussion board. So all we have to do is come up to the top corner here, and you can see right now that this Google document is private to me only, so nobody else can view it, right? So we're going to click on that share button, and then we're going to get this box come up. And what you want to do is under restricted, you would want just to put anybody with a link. Okay. And then over here, we're going to control what a viewer is allowed to do. So you can just allow people to view it, which is what I would recommend. You can allow people to comment, which, you know, reality is most people are going to comment in the discussion board, and that is basically where we want comments to be so that it's easy to monitor. So I would keep it up at viewer. Now you could, if you went down to editor, then people are going to be able to edit your document, and that's not something you want to do. And then once you have selected this, you just click on copy link, and that has been copied. And let's say we go to lesson number 1. And what we're going to do to post is we're going to go to this top reply button. It's not, you know, this isn't really intuitive, so, but we're going to hit that. And then you could say, here's my work, or whatever you want to do. And you can either highlight and link it. So we're just going to paste that link, or you can just paste it afterwards. It's the same thing. And then we're going to hit post reply. And then it's down here. So when somebody comes to take a look at it, you know, if you right click on that, you can open that in a new window, in a new tab. And there's the tab here. Okay, so a very easy way to share your work. And the main reason is when you start adding to the template file, you're going to find that you get, this file becomes pretty heavy duty in terms of its size. So there's, I believe, 150 plus pages. Yeah. And it may be more by the time you get to the end. So by just sharing a link, you're not having to upload or download any documentation. So the Google documents are really quite brilliant that way. Now, if you make a mistake when you make a post, there's a few buttons over on the side here, and you can edit, right? So I could come in here and change the link or change any text, and then say that's, I'm not going to do that. Or I can just get rid of that whole post. And that's gone now. Okay. So I see Myra's posted her work. And good for you, Myra. That's excellent. And again, if anybody wants to look at it, you can just click on that and take a peek. And then if you have anything you want to say to Myra, you just hit the reply button that's below the person's post. And that'll open up a box and you can say whatever you wish, you know, what a great job or love your site. And boom, hit the reply, and that will relate to her posting there. Okay. And it looks like the mom had a little challenge there. This is not how we obviously want to do it. We don't want to just post text into the box. We want to utilize the template file. Now, one thing I should just point out is at the top or within every discussion board, we're going to have a number of different tabs here. So the personal survey, here's information on it and what we want you to include. If we go to the design site, we have a similar batch of information here and a little tutorial on choosing a design site, because there are a few things you want to consider. And one of them is being able to access the site. So when we get to lesson 6, we're going to be looking at soils, and you're going to have to be able to access the site in order to take a soil sample and do some infiltration tests and that sort of thing. We also want to see a building on this site. So if you have say you have acreage, project site with that's whatever it is, urban or acreage, and it doesn't have a building, we'd want to put a proposed building on there. Okay, and it'll be obvious as we go forward why that is. So do take a look at this document. That might help you out if you have any questions about project sites and what that's all about. And this is also another biggie. So use the entire area. So sometimes we'll have, in the last class, I had this where one of my students had, I think it was a 10 or 20 acre site, and they just wanted to design a very small portion of it, like an acre or two. And that's, you know, that's fine. You can certainly do that, but you are really missing out on a lot of the course in that, you know, permaculture is really about looking at the whole. We're considering that whole project site and all the assets or liabilities that might be within it. So if we just take a small section of it, we may be missing out on a lot of opportunities during the course. So whether that be water, you know, or a specific microclimate, or again, some liability, maybe there's an area that gets flooded. So do consider that. And then there is some information here that you'd want to look at. And then there's a little tab here for the climate survey. And again, this information is in the project template file, but this is a good to refer to. And then we have assignment resources. So it's great to have all this stuff right on the same page. We can look at the resources, you know, basic drawing and using PowerPoint. And, you know, you probably wouldn't want to be using PowerPoint for, you know, a design for a client, right? It doesn't quite have the resolution, but in this course, we want to really learn about the permaculture design process and use a sort of a basic tool that's going to allow us to get our point across and our ideas across without having to spend a year learning it, right? So the software I use, it would take you probably a year to get a good feel of it, and it's just not what it's about in this course. How to use Google Earth, and some climate survey resources, inside and outside of the US. And then one thing to keep in mind here again is on how to submit assignments. We went over that, how you copy and how you share. But again, there's information there if you want to look at that again. But the key here on every assignment is the rubric. Okay, so when I grade and comment on your assignment, I am using this rubric to grade it. So if for some reason you don't include something that's within the rubric, you know, I'm following this. Okay, it's not arbitrary. So good thing to take a look at. And the rubric is on every single discussion board for that specific assignment or lesson. And again, it's telling you when things are due. So next Monday, lesson 1 will be due, and we'd like to have them in by 9 a.m. if you can. So typically what I do, because my wife and myself operate a design and construction firm, a design and build firm, I've sort of sacrificed my Mondays. I don't do any of that work. I work for OSU on that day. And then I will check in later in the week. So I'm not on this platform every single day. I do check for questions every day. So if you do have a question and you put it in that Q&A discussion board, odds are I'll see it within a day or so and I can get back to you. But if you post an assignment late, you know, I may be able to pick it up later in the week, which I like to do, you know, a Thursday or Friday, but it may have to wait till the next Monday. And then if you are unable to get an assignment in on time and it's 2 weeks or more late, you know, I will grade it, but I'm not sure I will have time to comment on it. And I think the comments, you know, getting some feedback on your work is, from a design perspective, is a great, you know, a great part of this course. So I really encourage everybody to try and be as diligent as they can with getting their assignments in. It can be tough. And a few years ago, this course, the regular PDC course, was a 10-week course. So every week you had assignments to put in, and that was brutal. That was hard because there's a lot of videos to go through, and then some of these lessons are fairly time consuming, right? So give yourself lots of time. The 2 weeks seems to work really well. And then we're going to have a break in the middle for a couple of weeks, I believe, and then gives people a little bit of an opportunity to catch up if they're behind. But try and avoid being late with assignments, particularly as we get to the end of the course. It occasionally happens where somebody will submit, you know, lesson 8, 9, and 10 all in the last week. And, you know, unfortunately, you're just not going to get the same quality feedback as you would if you're getting them in on time. Even if it was a couple of days late, that's no big deal. You're still going to get good feedback. It's just when we start stretching it out over a 2-week period, which happens, you know, life happens, things go on in people's lives, and you know, we're very understanding with that. It's just a little bit of time management on my side. So that's an overview of lesson 1. And again, if you click on that discussion board or that discussion tab at the top here, it will open up, and every couple of weeks I'll pin the next lesson. So it's all in this upper portion of the page here. So it's easy to find. And yeah, and again, there's the question board right here. So feel free to utilize that. If you don't want to post a question here, you can go to the inbox on the left-hand side here and press that. And that's kind of like an internal email setup. And you can compose a message. You just select the course and you can send that to me that way, or you can also email me. And I will have sent out a message to all of you with my email address. I don't really want to put it on this video because this video ends up on my YouTube channel. So it's a little more public, but it's easy to access for students. So yeah, I think we're getting oh, we got a chat question here. All right, well, let's stop sharing. Okay, Pandora has a question. You have to use PowerPoint if you're familiar with another tool. Yeah, no problem at all, Pandora. You use whatever you want. And as long as what we would request is use the template file. But if you're using another software for drawing, yeah, feel free and just, take screenshots and integrate your drawing that way. And hopefully, does that answer your question, Pandora? Are you good with that? And yeah, okay, great. Lesson 1 due on the 18th? No. Lesson 1 is due on the 4th. So next Monday. And it's a pretty gentle lesson. So it shouldn't be too onerous. So yeah, it's due next Monday. So what happens is one Monday we'll have a lesson due, and then the following Monday we have a Q&A Zoom meeting about the lesson to come, right? So we have that sort of set up with the course. So we're always a week in advance with our Q&A Zoom meetings about the lesson that is coming up. And that way, if you're going through the course and you're finding anything that's a challenge, this is a great opportunity to have those answered, and then everybody gets to benefit as well, because often there'll be others that have a similar question. So
is there a place that says when the lessons are due? Because when I open that lesson, it says lesson 1, it says on the top right, it says it's due July 18th.
Wow, that's interesting. When I open it up, it says July 4th. Are you sure you're on lesson 1?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah, it'll be every 2 weeks as of next Monday, and then we have a little break after lesson 5. And then we're back. So we do have a summer, sort of a fall break, and then we get back into it into October. But yeah, next Monday is the due date.
Oh, okay, it says course summary. I see that now, but then when now it says July 4th. That is weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Because I was looking at lesson 1 and it was like that the whole time. Well, okay. That's odd. I mean, I just now looked 5 minutes ago and then now it's different.
Yeah, well, no worries. We're all good for next Monday, and then of course it's every 2 weeks following that. So you'll probably find with some of these assignments, there's a fair bit of content that you have to watch. And then, depending on what skills you have, it may take a little bit of time to document, let's say, your microclimates. So chipping away at it is a great idea. If you're able to fit in a little bit of time each day, that's fantastic. But everybody's going to have a different workflow. We all have really busy lives, and everybody has a slightly different approach. But the other thing I wanted to point out that is on that resource page, if I go back to that, is occasionally we will get, and it does happen, we get people that have medical emergencies or things that, medical issues that prevent them from completing the course. So let me just share the screen here. So if you have to re-enroll, it is certainly possible. All you have to do, there is a fee attached to it. And if there is some sort of hardship, you just have to email Dow Orion here with an explanation, or you can just tell me about it and we can, I can carbon that and send it along. But occasionally it happens where somebody cannot complete due to one reason or another. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, we want you to get through the course in one go, but occasionally this does happen. So people get sick and fall way behind and can't catch up. And so it isn't sort of an all or not. You do have that opportunity to re-enroll at a discounted rate, and then you sort of pick up where you left off. So if you got to lesson 3 and you had to re-enroll, you'd be picking up lesson 4 and moving forward with that. Yeah, so that is a little bit about the platform and the lesson that's coming up. Does anybody have any questions or comments they want to throw out?
I have one question, Jamie. So
Sure.
regarding kind of site design, the property we have has a couple of structures on it that are probably needing to be kind of removed. So as we go into site design, like how would you kind of manage that? Should I take it from the perspective of how we're going to change those structures and or kind of how we're going to put things on the property as we go along, or just kind of work with it as it exists now as we go through the process?
Well, normally what I would recommend is when we get to the base plan, so we don't have to worry about that on the first lesson, but that's a good question. For the second lesson, any building footprints, you're really just showing existing conditions. So that's an important part of the base plan, is to show what is going on in the site as a snapshot in that moment. And then if you had some buildings there that you knew were going to be removed or altered, you could certainly make a note of that on the base plan, that this is existing but to be removed. And then when we get a little further, you could, let's say you have a house that's going to be renovated and enlarged, you could show the building footprint. And then you could say, that could be your existing footprint, and you could show perhaps some dotted lines roughly showing the proposed new footprint for the house. There's a couple of ways you can do it, but you certainly want to show what's existing. And that's all part of our site analysis, is really dialing into what's going on, not only from a physical sense, the structures, any plant material, but also, we're going to be looking at the analysis of the site. What is the what are those sectors like? So what are the outside forces affecting the project site? What are the the climate and the microclimates, etc., and water resources, which in my opinion is probably one of the most important layers of a permaculture design, is managing water. And it takes a little bit of practice, but yeah, this should be, I think that most people will find this is a pretty eye-opening course, and there's a lot of support for everybody. And you're going to sort of, you'll yield what the energies you put into the course. So for some people, they're full on and they do an incredible work, and they're going to have an incredible experience. That doesn't mean they're not making mistakes. It's all a learning experience, right? So if there's something on your assignment that I think isn't quite right, I certainly point it out, and everybody has an opportunity to make a change. Let's say, you were hoping to get full marks on an assignment and you didn't. You have the opportunity to update it. So it's everybody has the opportunity to take this as far as they want, or you can kind of minimally participate. It's really up to everybody what they want to do with that. Some people will join the course and basically look at all the content and won't submit assignments. That happens as well. So yeah, not so much with the PDC Pro, but with the PDC course that can happen. And it's completely different for everybody. For some, it's just about making their garden more resilient, and that's great. Give you tools to do that. So yeah, so hopefully that answered your question, Thomas. And
Yeah, thanks, Jamie.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, we'll be wrapping up today.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I don't actually live at my design site right now, but it's about 3 hours away from me, and I do visit it occasionally. But in lesson 1, there is a slide that requests like some 3D images of some of the land, and I don't have access to those right now, but potentially in the near future I will. So is it possible to kind of go back and insert those images when I have them? Or yeah.
Yeah, having access to the design site is a really good idea. Is it in another city or area that's far away from where you live?
Yeah, it's about 3 hours away from me.
Yeah, that's your call. You may want to consider choosing a site that's a little easier to access, because we're going to be asking you, like for instance, in the next lesson, when you put your base plan together, you may have to visit the site to complete that, right? And the following lesson, we're looking at microclimates and sectors. So it's a good question, Myra, and I would say to get the most out of this exercise, you would want to be able to access the site as needed, and some lessons you won't have to, and others you probably find, wow, I should go take a look and see exactly where these hot, warm microclimates might be, or where I've got lots of shade, or where there's some flood issues, or that sort of thing. So not sure if that helps you, Myra, but
Yeah, thank you. I think that is helpful. I might just like go out there anyway to work on some other stuff. I have some family that lives over there anyway, so maybe they can help me out too.
Sure. Yeah, well, I totally get it. And I have a student right now who's living in Oregon, and his project site is in Japan, but he's moving there and he'll be there by lesson 6, which is going to be right coming up for them. So that's kind of an exception, but he's got people on the ground there that can help with some of the observations that he's having to articulate. So, but it's still, like for instance, I'm doing a farm design right now for somebody who's, you know, a day's travel away from where I live. And I need to get there at some point. But I've been able to start and move forward with it without a site visit, just with a lot of feedback and images and videos from our client. But it makes it way harder. So eventually, after you've done a lot of design work, if that's what you choose to do, you will find it is easier to get at least started on designs you haven't visited. And often we do commercial land design as well. And in that case, you're designing for a space that hasn't even been created yet. So the buildings to come, and you have to. So yeah, there's ways of doing it. But I hope I'm not muddying the waters there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, is everybody feeling pretty good about moving forward with the platform? And cool. Well, I'm really happy that we got good attendance today, and thank you very much for joining me for the last hour. What I'll do is I'll be posting this on the discussion board page if you guys want to reference it, or anybody else. And thank you again very much for your time. And we really look forward to seeing your first assignment by next Monday. And if you do have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, my previous note to everybody would have my email address, as well as you can use that inbox icon on the Canvas platform. If you send me a note through that, I do get an email alert. So either way works, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible. So thank you all very much, and you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Bye.
See you later.